there. And I will push that button. So we're going live on Facebook. Brian, won't that be fun? We're going to be on Facebook together, maybe even
Hey,
YouTube.
That'll be all kinds of fun.
All kinds of fun. Do you go on Facebook regularly, or is that not something you do?
I don't spend a lot of time there. We'll take a peek at it every now and again.
So, somehow that doesn't surprise me. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, let's see. Are we up and running? Nope, that one's not there. Let's do this here. Let's see if that's go. Okay. Brian, looks like you got quite a fan club here joining us.
Uh-oh.
Be careful of the secrets.
Well, it's an honor to be here. I've took a look at some of the people that you had interviewed in the past, and don't know that I feel that I quite fit in with that crowd, but you've had some big names and some heavy hitters there on your show.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's we're just looking for, like yourself, people that do a great job and present really well. I'd heard a lot of good things about you, and I wanted to have you on the show to just share some different things. We have gotten, if agents will go back through, I think there's about 50 or 53 interviews we've done. Those interviews, I believe, if you go through them and take notes, they're about 45 minutes to an hour long. It's like getting a master's degree, if you will, in real estate. It's amazing, the information that we glean from everyone, and we're looking forward for that from you today, Brian. So it's fantastic. So Brian Noel from Utah. Welcome in our Neil with Masterminding group here on Thursday. This is our last event of the year, Brian.
Oh, wow.
Our last Mastermind. Yeah, I couldn't get anybody on New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve to talk to me. Not even my own agents would talk to me. We will be, though, Brian, we will be role playing as we have every single day since March 17th as a group for 1 hour. So we will be doing that on Christmas Eve and Christmas Eve morning and New Year's Eve morning.
That is just fantastic. That is outstanding. Yeah.
We do it in this virtual office, and it's been amazingly powerful. Really, really good. So Brian, why don't you give me a little bit of the Reader's Digest version for everybody here on the call, and kind of, you know, where you're from, a little bit of your production, maybe a little bit of background.
Sure. So I started out the business. I've been in the business about 24 years now. I started in 1996 as a part-time agent. I was, 34, I guess, at the time. And I had been working all of my adult career and really as a teenager too in property management. And so I was a property manager at the time that I got my license. And so I was a little bit familiar with the industry, but I had pretty much reached what I felt was the pinnacle of where I was going to go doing that. And it just was not coming anywhere near close to cutting it. And the other thing I noticed is I was putting together a few deals here and there with just buyers and owners of the communities that I managed, and people stopping in my office, hey, what do you have available? And so I was putting a couple of them together and thought, you know, I really ought to get paid for this. And so I got my license. I did both of them together for about 14 years. So I was really a part-time agent for 14 years. And after about 2 years of doing it, I did get busy enough to where so we weren't letting anything slip through the cracks or letting any of our clients' needs go. My wife got her license about 2 years afterwards. And so we've worked together for the last 24 years together doing this as a team. And for the most part, that's worked out well. As long as I do what she tells me, then we're we're in good shape.
I get it. I understand. I get that. So Brian, so all the time that you've been in the business, pretty much in the same community, correct?
That's correct.
Right. And so in 2019, how much production?
So for the last several years, we've been doing between 40 to 50 deals a year.
Okay, got it.
As I said, we were part-time up until it's about 2012. I was with another national brokerage and had never went into the office, never did any training, just didn't do anything along that nature. I'd never been trained properly. Some things started going on in our office where we were looking for a change, and my wife started looking at different offices, and she ran across George Morris's office with Century 21. And make a long story short, we joined that office, which of course was plugged into the Mike Ferry system, and that was really the first introduction I'd had to what real estate really ought to be. And remember, I was still part-time. I was working a full-time job as a property manager and still trying to do this. Our best year up to that time, I was making, I don't know, I was doing between 10 to 20 deals a year. And I think the most I'd ever made in real estate was $80,000 in that 14 years in a year.
So just enough to be frustrating.
Just enough to be frustrating. And it was about matching what I was making as a property manager. And so, it was. I saw what could be done, a little glimpse of it. But then when we joined Century 21 and plugged into the Mike Ferry system, that was a game changer. That was in 2012. And within 9 months of doing that, I had doubled our best year ever that we had ever done. And then the next year we doubled that. Working with George, one of the key things that we did, of course, besides plugging into the system was we were coaching with our broker on a regular basis. He was holding us accountable, and then we set another goal. Well, let's go full time. And Neil, that scared me to death.
So wait, Brian, hold on a second.
Okay.
What are you telling me you went from 40 deals to 80 deals and you were still part-time?
No.
Right, 20 deals to 40 deals, sorry.
Yeah.
20 deals to 40 deals part-time.
40 deals, and then we said, George said, okay, you've got to take this to the next level. Quit screwing around with your other full-time job and get serious about this. And it just scared me to death. I had been wanting to do that for 14 years, never had the guts to take the jump and do it, didn't have the faith. I had 3 of my 4 kids still living at home, and we're getting to that age where they're starting to get real expensive. And my job was where my health insurance was, and a lot of my real estate business came from that, people coming through into my office there, and that was a tough deal. But I remember around that same time we went to a Tony Robbins event because of our broker George, and made some decisions at that event. Okay, it's time to get serious. It's time to burn the bridges and let's do this thing. And I remember looking at George and said, okay, I will do whatever you tell me to do. And if my family goes down the tubes, it's your fault.
I get that a lot.
And I'll tell you, Neil, we have never looked back, and it has been a profound change in our lifestyle and in everything we do. And so grateful for that opportunity to be involved in this business. And
that's great.
Who we are.
So thank you, Brian. That's terrific. So 2020, your goal in January was to do what kind of business?
Well, so we'd actually dropped down a little bit in 2019. We got a little complacent, And we sat down with our coach and we mapped out a 5-year plan of to where we could get to making $1 million in real estate. And we set that out, and our goal ended up being 50 transactions for 2020. We for year after year after year, we'd been setting these goals in the 75, 80 range transactions and a certain dollar amount. And we just weren't hitting it. We plateaued between 40 to 50 deals. And so we set that. And then of course in March, well, before then COVID hit and kind of changed a few things. But
So it was frustrating in 2000 to 2019, you just never hit the goal. So how has it changed, or has it changed in 2020, even with COVID?
so it has changed in a substantial and profound way. And 2020 has been by far, without a doubt, our single best year ever in real estate.
Tell me about it.
Well, so what happened was we started off the year like any other year, and probably actually a little bit slower. But and then COVID came along mid-March, end of March, and I had just used up a lot of our reserves, bought a vacation rental, borrowed a little bit of money on our HELOC to totally gut it and remodel it, and kind of drained some of our reserves that way. And then COVID came along, and we started panicking. I mean, we really did. Everything's getting shut down, and we thought this could get real ugly, real fast. And there was a train wreck going on in our mind, and my wife and I, we started letting fear get a hold of us, thinking that all of we owned a number of vacation rentals, and within a 2-week period, where they were all booked for the summer and the season, they all canceled. Every day we're getting cancellation after cancellation, and we thought, oh my gosh, the market's going to crash. We're not going to have any income. We've got all this new debt we've required for these vacation rentals, and it got ugly fast. And so we just stopped, and we said, okay, this is ridiculous. And we sat down, and the two of us made a conscious decision that we were not going to live in fear, that we were going to live in faith and not fear, and we were not going to let our fears get a hold of us. And we were going to remain laser focused on living in faith. And Neil, and there were a few things that we did that went along that I'll discuss in more detail if you want, but it was a game changer for us. It was profound, and I'll always remember this year as learning some very valuable lessons as far as mindset and living in faith and not letting your fears get a hold of you.
So I want to talk about that in just a second, but what are you going to end up number-wise for 2020 then?
We've already closed what usually our best year is. We've already closed 50 deals. We've got 10 pending right now. We're going to end up a couple thousand, and that doesn't tell the whole story, because we have substantially changed our price point of where we work, and we're going to end up a couple $100,000 more than what we've ever made before.
So 500,000, 400,000?
We're going to end up at 700,000.
Whoa!
Yeah, and those are numbers for us that we just have never had those type of numbers before. I know that, for us, that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
That's, for a lot of people, Brian, that's a big deal. Good for you. So all right. So you ran, I heard this a lot. In March, a lot of people, everybody got scared. I get it, all right? But some people never got over it, and some people like yourself, just hit the ground running and said, that's it, they shook it off. Talk to me about that mindset. Talk to me about what you had to go through, because, some of us are still dealing with some of that garbage.
Yeah. So there's a few things. and I'll list a couple of them, but the first one that we did is, after making that decision that we were going to not live in fear, I have been taught, and we learned that the best antidote, without a doubt, the number one antidote to fear is gratitude. And we said, we're going to be grateful. We're going to live in gratitude. We're going to go to that space of gratitude whenever those fears start coming, and focus on that. And I'll tell you, that was a powerful experience for us. And because fear and gratitude cannot be in the same place at the same time. It can't exist together in the same mind. And so that was probably the number one thing that we did, is focused on being grateful for what we had. And then, of course, besides that, you've got to have a routine of a plan of what you're going to do when those fears start creeping in, because they do. I mean, even today, every day, several times a day, it can be a train wreck in my mind. In a matter of a second and a half, the world's coming to an end if you start going down that road and let it start going away.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So when those fears start coming in, I say, no, I refuse to think that way. I think only good, positive, productive thoughts of prosperity and abundance and love and joy and peace, and then start trying to go to that place of gratitude to break that pattern, because it can come fast, and you got to have a way to deal with it. So that was one of the keys. The other one was, Neil, that was just so important, and probably the first thing we did, is we made a decision to turn off the TV. And I was a news junkie. We said, we're just not going to watch that anymore. And I used to come home and flip it on and used to figure I need to know what's going on in the world. But we turned all of that off. We turned off the news. We turned off all TV. We turned off the social media, and we just weren't going to go there. And it was hard, but it was a very conscious, focused decision that we made that was a game changer for us. And it really was. All of those numbers that we talked about, I really attribute to more of we didn't change our prospecting numbers or how we went about marketing or anything. We just kept doing that same thing. It was a mind shift that we changed that made the difference.
Oh, that's great. So your business comes from where? Is it past client sphere, expired?
So about 60% of our business is our SOI, our sphere and past clients. And then the other area that I work, that I spend my time in, is expired. So about 60% sphere, 25% expired, and then the other 15% is signed calls, internet calls, just listed, just sold, all the other things that come trickling in.
Got it. And how do you keep track of your past client and sphere? Is it a weekly thing, a monthly thing?
So what we do with our sphere, and we've been doing this for quite a while, I will mail them at least quarterly. So, and I've got a company that chooses the content. We just give them our spreadsheet of all our names and addresses, and they pick the content and mail it out. And it's just something to get our name and our face in front of them. And then once a year, we will mail them a calendar along with a newsletter. We do that this time of year around Christmas and New Year's. So besides that, we will call them. And I've just got a 3-ring binder here, and it's divided up alphabetically in tabs, and they're just in there. So I have a sheet of paper with my SY, and every time I call someone, and I'll just go through it alphabetically. And every time
Wait a minute, Brian, you mean you don't have a sophisticated whoop-de-woo CRM?
I can't tell you the time I have spent or wasted on trying to figure out, I got to have the best this, the best that, and finally, my wife got so frustrated with me. She printed it all up off of our Outlook. I use Outlook, put it in Pages, put it in a binder, and said, here you go.
Knock yourself out.
Yep. And it works for me. So I'll have it in front of me, and I'll just take notes when I call them of different things that are going on or what we talked about or what have you. So when I talk to them the next time, I can remember and talk to them somewhat caring and intelligent like. So
And
it's
and you did that through all the COVID too, right?
did that through all the COVID, absolutely. And those were a little bit different phone calls. For a while it was calling, how are you doing? Are you surviving all this craziness? Is there anything we can do to help?
Right. God, that's great. Fantastic.
So
So you had a great year. You set yourselves up. You got through the COVID. What's the first quarter look like for you?
Well, right now we've got 10 under contract, 10 pendings. A number of those will bleed over into the first year or into the first month or two. Some of them are new construction ones that may be a little bit farther out than that. We've got a number of them in the pipeline. I think, of course, even with the holiday objection handlers that we try and use, there are just a number of people they're going to be ready after the holidays. And so we've got a number of them in the pipeline that, of course, we'll start calling and contacting for that.
That's great. So what advice, we get this question all the time. We have newer agents or agents, let's say, that are, well, maybe like you were in that 15 to 20 range and you were kind of sound like you were stuck there for a while. What advice would you give to an agent to help them break out of that?
Well, for me, there were two things, and one was with my SOI, and the other one was expired. And if you like, I'll spend a little bit of time of what I do on each of those and how I do it, because my coach and George was always telling me, it's your SOI, you got to call them regularly. And I'm basically a fairly quiet, introverted person. It's difficult for me to go out and talk to people, and it's still difficult for me to pick up the phone and call some of our SOI. We've got about 800 on our list right now, and there's still a few of them that cause me that grief. And for quite a while, it was tough to pick up the phone. I thought, well, I need to get successful first, and then I'll start calling my SOI so they know I can do it. Right now, I'm just doing at this level. I need to be at this level before I call them. But what I started doing, and I ran across this by accident, at least it gave me confidence to pick up my phone and call anyone in my SOI. And so before I'd call them, I would pull up the MLS and I would type in their address. And then I would do a search around a 2 or 3 block radius of their house. Everything that had sold recently, under contract, active, whatever. And this started by accident because a couple of times when I was asking people, my SOI who I was calling, who do you know that is going to be selling their home? Oh, well, this person right over here, their home's for sale, call them. And I thought, oh, geez, I don't want to go there. So I wanted to know before I called them if their neighbor's home was for sale or if there was a home down the street that was for sale. So I pulled that up. So I had it there in front of me. I had the information, and it gave me confidence so that I could talk about their specific neighborhood, their specific market, particularly. Oh, hey, did you know the Johnson's home is for sale? They're asking $560 for it, and have you seen it? So I would pull all that up, and then depending on who it was and what the circumstance was, my phone call was, hey, this is Brian Noel, and do you have time for just a quick real estate question? Yeah, okay. Well, I've got a client that is actually been looking in your area in this price range, and we've seen this home down the street. We know that one's for sale, and it doesn't quite fit their needs. Are you aware of anyone else? Have you heard any other rumors or rumblings in your neighborhood of anyone who is looking to sell their home? And or if there's nothing active in their home, we'll talk about an under contract or a sold comparable. If I'm doing a CMA for someone, I'll call them up to ask them specifically about that home. Have you been in that home? What can you tell me about it? I'm using it as a comparable for this client. Just something to start the real estate conversation. And for me, that gave me confidence that I could call people who I wouldn't normally call.
Very smart.
So,
Very smart.
and in fact, I'll tell you a story. I had one guy on my SOI. He was my son's football coach 10 years ago. I'd never known him before, hadn't ever talked to him before, didn't talk with him after, but he was my son's little league coach and got to know him that way. Of course, so he went on our mailer, and I mailed him for 10 years, Neil, and I never called him. I never called him. I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to keep mailing him if I'm not going to call him. So I called him up. I used that approach and just asked him, are you aware of anyone in your neighborhood? Have you heard any rumors, rumblings of someone who may be moving or selling their home? Sure have. You need to call this guy right across the street. And it turned into a great sale. Well, I called him about 6 months later and with a similar thing. Hey, I've got another client. And I really did. I got another client looking in the area. Are you aware of anything? This time he didn't know of anyone. But then he called me about 6 months later after that, after we hadn't talked for 10 years. And he was selling his home. Well, guess who we called to do that? So, I mean, just I tell you story after story like that of calling your SOI. And for me, sometimes it can be frightening. It can be hard, but find those ways to open up a real estate conversation with them. And for me, knowing what was going on in their neighborhood, in their market, it gave me that confidence, that little bit of confidence that I needed to call someone who I wouldn't necessarily call a real close acquaintance or a friend or someone who I've always regularly stay in contact with.
So you overcame that fear, you overcame that concern. You were making $80 to $120,000, $200,000 a year because you weren't making the calls. You shifted a mental gear, and in the middle of COVID, with all the fear and craziness going on, made $700,000.
Yeah.
Well, you failed on getting the million, so I guess we need to work on that for next year, huh?
We've got to have something to shoot for.
We have to have something to shoot for. Exactly. I bet your wife's pretty upset about this whole conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic. So you said you had something that you did a little different for the expireds too.
So I am a little bit more focused on my expireds. I like door knocking, and I was calling expireds and probably didn't give it enough time on the phone or enough training to, because you know how when you're first making those calls, and I was running across just a lot of bad phone numbers. I was doing Red X and the dialer, and one day I just got frustrated and thought, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to go see these people. So I grabbed a list of 10 of them and went and started knocking on their doors. And for me, I've just had a lot more success face to face. If I can see someone, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and meet them that way, I've had more success doing that at their door than I have on the phone. And so I will I print up each morning, we'll print up all the expireds, and I have my assistant, we sort them into zip codes. And then whenever I go into an area, I'll grab those and I'll pick the best 10. And I have my assistant, look up on the tax records who it is, write their name on it. And I'll grab that sheet, I'll drive up to their door, I'll park right in front of their front door, go up, knock on their door, and I like to use their name as an opener. I'll say, oh, hi, you must be John. And it kind of takes them off guard a little bit, kind of maybe lowers those walls a little bit. Well, yeah, who are you? I'm Brian Noel, Sanctuary 21. Look, John, listen, the reason why I stopped by your home today is because I'm working with a number of other sellers in this price range. And with the marketing that we're doing, we're receiving buyer inquiries on a regular basis. And so my question for you is, I know your home was for sale not too long ago. Are you still interested in selling your home? And that's my secret sauce. I mean, right there. That's it. That's it.
Nothing more magic.
Nothing more magic. If they are not home, I will leave my card in their door. I come back, I give the sheet to my assistant, and she sends them a letter along with that same card so she can match them up. And the letter just says, hey, I stopped by your home. This is why I stopped by your home. I'd love to talk with you. and I write down what time it was that I saw them, whether it was a morning or an afternoon. The next time I'm in that area, I'll grab those same ones, and this time I'll try and see them at a different time in the evening, and I'll try them at least 2, sometimes 3 times, and that works for me. I've been successful doing that. I've done a number of expireds that way. In fact, I have to tell you the story. One of the very first ones that I did, it was a nice home. It was a $600,000 home, and it was in an area not too far from where I lived, a different neighborhood, but I had to drive past it every night on my way home. And I had knocked on their door, sent them the letter, knocked on it probably 3 or 4 times just because it was on my way home, and never ever caught anyone home. And it was the last time I was driving home, and it was middle of the winter. It was dark. It was probably 7 o'clock at night, and it was cold. I thought, well, I had to stop by. And then I thought, no, it's dark. I don't want to go knock on their door. But I did anyway. I thought, okay, this is the last time. So I went and knocked on the door, and the gal finally was home. She opened up the door. She looked at me, and she goes, "Oh, it's you. Come on in." Because every time I'd knock on the door, I'd leave my card in the door again. So they knew I was trying to get in touch with them. Said, "Oh, it's you. Come on in." So I came in, we sat down, ended up listing their home, helping them buy another one. And then I was off and running to the races. Once you get that first 1 or 2 under your belt, then it's like, I can do this.
So my impression isn't that you're not that pushy salesman kind of a guy that's not Brian's MO, right?
That's not me. That is not me. I have a tough time with that.
And yet you're doing a lot of business at a little higher price point. I want to talk about the price point change. So you moved from what to what?
We moved from an average of around 350 to 4 to now our average is probably closer to 6 or 7. And this year I've done 3, 4 deals that are over $1 million plus, $1.5 million, $1.7 million. And that's been a game changer for us.
How'd you move into that market? That's doubling your sales price more or less.
Yeah.
On average. Yeah.
So it was expireds. Went, knocked on their door, got the first one. And then here's the other thing I do. Whenever I take a listing or sell a home, doesn't matter where it is, I'm pulling up all of the expireds within a 2 to 3 mile radius of that home. Pull them all up over the last 4 or 5 years. I'll go back that far. Sometimes I'll narrow the radius so it's not too many. And then I'll scrub them and see which ones, if they sold, then I throw them out. But if it hasn't sold, and then I'll go talk to those people. And again, it's another confidence builder for me because I have an easy approach. It's not a hard sell approach. I have an easy approach. Hey, I'm Brian Noel of Century 21. I just sold this home. I just sold your neighbor's home right around the corner from you. And we're still receiving buyer inquiries on a regular basis. I know your home was for sale not too long ago. Would you still consider selling your home? And I got $1.5 million home. My first expired, ended up listing right across the street from that. Another home that expired 2 years ago. I went and knocked on their door, got that one, ended up helping them buy another $1.7 million home. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
That's fantastic. Really, really cool. Hey, so Brian, what would you say one of your superpowers is?
My superpowers. I hope you're not going to get all this great information from me like you have your other people. And
I will tell you, you're mistaken. Okay, and from this perspective, all right, your humility and you're not an average person, so I don't want to insult you in that way, but your humility of the way you're approaching the business, it's a anyone can do it the way you're talking about. And a lot of times our agents make it so big in their heads that they can't get out. And it's so refreshing and fantastic the way you're approaching this. So
but that's
this
what I
is
was going to say
amazing.
is I hope the one thing that this does here, spending a few minutes with me, is to give all your agents hope, because believe me, if I can have some small degree of success, anyone can, because I had so many issues going into this. But the one thing that I have, that not necessarily a superpower, but I think one thing that has served me well is I've tried to have some consistency over the years of just keep doing it, keep plugging along. I haven't done everything right, but there are a few things that I've just stayed consistent with that will just keep doing it and doing it and doing it over time, and just being persistent and consistent. And that has probably been, if you want to call it a superpower, whatever. And then, of course, just this last year, just kind of that change of mindset, of belief, and trying to control what's going on in our mind and how we look at things. And this year, I shouldn't say just this year, but one of the things that was a change for us is we became more intentional. And what I mean by that is, before, when I was coaching and being held accountable, my coach would say, okay, you got to go knock on this many doors, make this many contacts. And I would go do it so I could check it off on the list. Okay, yep, I made this many contacts and I knocked on this many doors and I made this many calls. Check, I'm done. And I've tried to change my mindset of that, is to not doing it to check it off, to report the number, which is not a bad thing. I mean, but making the phone calls. If I'm going to knock on someone's door, I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to break those barriers down. I'm going to set an appointment. That's my goal now, is to set an appointment, not to check it off. Yeah, I knocked on that door. And if I go on an appointment, it's to get a listing. The goal is not to just go on an appointment. It's to get that listing. And so we've become a lot more focused and intentional on why we're doing it.
Your wife made a note here in the chat box.
Uh-oh.
I'm his superpower.
There we go. Gosh darn it, I missed that one. You threw me a softball. I could have hit it out of the park. My wife is the superpower, and I tell people that all the time. If I have to ever go out by myself, I apologize. I say, I'm sorry, I'm missing the best. You're missing the best half of this, because my secret weapon really is my wife.
I love it. I love it. So Brian, is there a particular objection handler or thing you like to say or do that when X happens, you pull it out and it works for you more times than not? Does that, you ever run into anything like that in your career?
Yeah, with the type of prospecting that I do, I get a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but it comes up often. Oh, well, I'm going to list with my friend. I'm a stranger.
We hear that all the time.
I'm going to list, well, my cousin is an agent. I've got to use him this time. I didn't use him last time, but now I've got to, or my best friend, or whatever. And I'll just say, oh, that is great. It's important to work with someone who you can trust. But can I share with you what a lot of people in your exact same situation have found to be invaluable? And sure, yeah, what? And I'll say, before you sign a contract and end up getting tied up in a contract, and maybe even what may happen a lot, just doing a friend a favor, before you get tied up in that, people have found it's helpful to get a second opinion from a seasoned professional to make sure that their friend has the right pricing strategy and a viable marketing plan, because people's homes are their single largest financial investment. Do you think that would be helpful to you? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Let's get together for a few minutes. I'll go over with you what the right pricing strategy is, and a proven marketing system that has a proven track record. and then you'll at least know the right questions to ask your friend before you get tied up in a contract with them.
That's fantastic. Very well said. Can I steal it?
Absolutely.
All right. That'll be on the role play next week. I love it. Thank you. Very, very cool. Okay, so you open to a few questions here on the floor?
Sure.
All right, so questions for Brian. Raise your hand, wave, say hi, unmute yourself and ask. Go ahead, Valerie.
So when you were talking about, after you got through deciding what was happening with COVID, you mentioned that the antidote to fear was gratitude. But then the next thing you started to say your routine, and then we kind of went down a different road. So I was kind of curious what your routine is.
So I basically have two routines that I was referring to. And the first one was, I did get a chance to mention just what I do when those fears start going in my mind. I'll just say, no, I'm not going to think that. And I go through this affirmation or chant to myself. I choose to think only good, positive, virtuous thoughts and thoughts of prosperity and abundance. And so I'll go through that in my mind over and over again. But really the routine starts with, we have a morning routine, just as I'm sure you folks do. Every morning at 8 o'clock, we're on a group call like this, and we go through our affirmations, we chant them together, and then we take about 5 to 10 minutes of quiet time, and we write down our gratitudes and we write down our intentions of what we want to do, and then we go through the morning meeting, and that has been a huge part of what we do. Not only do you have to just turn off the news and get rid of the bad stuff, but you got to fill your mind with good stuff, with the books and the tapes or the podcasts and the people who you associate with, and that's been just a game changer for us. And I'm sure that's the type of environment, in fact, I know it is, that Neil provides at your company. And you guys are so blessed to have that sort of atmosphere to be able to plug into and associate with and cheer each other on. It just is a game changer.
Hey, Brian, just keep talking. We got another 10 or 12 minutes on the nice things about Neil. No. Any other questions? Thank you, Valerie. Good question. Other questions here? Just wave or talk. Wave or talk.
Hi,
Josie, go ahead. Josie?
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much, Brian. You're kind of a down to earth, really fantastic, successful man. Are you still calling your sphere of influence and past clients with the looking up neighborhood sales or homes for sale?
I am. Ones that I don't call that often, I still use that same thing. But even my A list of people who I call more regularly and I become comfortable with, and they just give me deals all the time, I'll still plug in their address before I call them, not necessarily to use that, but because I want to know before I call them. If there is something going on in their neighborhood, I want to know. I want to be the one telling them about it rather than them telling me about it. So it just helps me become the neighborhood expert and lets them know that, hey, I'm serious about this and I know what's going on.
So Brian, I had a question on this. Your clients that you're talking to aren't in one area. They're all over Ogden area or?
All over, all of Salt Lake County and I'll go up into Davis County and Utah County. So I'll work 3 different counties, but primarily Salt Lake County, which is, several million people and 700,000 single family homes. So it's a big area. Right.
So you're just doing a little bit of the research and then you get on the phone and make a few of the calls. So,
yep.
So what I was going to ask is, do you have it sorted by area that you'll call in, or do you have to do this research every time you pick up the phone?
No, so on the expireds, I do have them sorted by area. I have them sorted by zip code. And when I go to one area, if a new listing pops up or a new expired pops up that I really like, and I'm going to that area, Then I'll go to my book and I'll grab everything that's in my book around the area so that I can go knock on 10 or 12 doors while I'm out. When I'm calling my SOI, then I'm just going down the list alphabetically, and before I call them up, I'll just plug in their address real quick, just in the MLS search, draw a radius around it and see if anything's come up in what's going on in their neighborhood. So
you're just doing that as you're making the calls.
Yep, just as I'm making the calls. I got my
Good
headset
for you.
on, and you know, it takes a little bit longer, and I'm not able to get through as many calls as someone else, but I feel I'm a little bit more focused and developing some good rapport with my people.
Got it. Very cool. All right, other questions for Brian, please.
How do you handle your buyers?
I use my secret weapon, my wife. She tends to handle most of our buyers, unless if it's someone who is my particular client that I just have a relationship with, and even then, I'll take my wife with me on the first time out and try to let her take over, and which almost happens almost every time, because she just relates to them a lot better than I do, and has a lot more patience with buyers than I do, and is just fantastic with them.
All right, good stuff. Other questions? Is it Margie? Did you have your hand up? No? Armin?
Yeah, what is your conversion rate on listing appointments?
So right now I'm about 70%. The goal is to get it up to 80, but and that's is I was having this last conversation with my coach. A number of the ones that I didn't get could have been ruled out and probably should not have gone on the appointment if I did a better job pre-qualifying them.
Interesting. You know, you lost a lot of points by not saying your wife was your superpower, right?
I know, I blew that one in a big way.
It's going to get some flowers on the way home tonight. Good job. All right, other questions?
I got a question for you.
Go ahead, Anthony, and then Yvonne.
As far as like you say you attack expireds, and it's more effective knocking on the door than a phone call, correct? And one thing that I'm working on targeting people that have been in notice of default. And how do you think that strategy will work? It's not an expired, but it's they have to do something.
I have found, at least for me, I'm more effective face to face than I am on the phone. But I'll tell you this: there are times though that when I can't catch them at home, and most of the time after 2 times of trying to catch them at home, then I'll come give the sheet to my assistant, say, look up these phone numbers. She'll find all the phone numbers that she can for them, and then I'll start calling them and saying, hey, I'm the guy who's been leaving cards in your door. This is why I've been stopping by at your door. I think that would work. I haven't done notices of default, but the principles are the same. They're people, and if you relate well to people face to face, I think that's probably a great strategy.
Very cool. Good job. Good job. All right, Yvonne.
Yeah, hi, Brian. Thank you so much. I have a question about how you manage your contacts. You say you just write on the papers. So do you write one name in one page, or how do you manage? Because you have so many, right? So one person, one page, so you can take notes.
One person, one page, and each time I call them, I write the date. And then whether I talked to them or not, or whether I left a message, I'll just put LM for left message, or NA for no answer, or I'll put just a couple of keywords about what our conversation was. And then I'll just go, fill up the page. And if it gets full, then I'll turn it over and start using the back page.
I like that. It makes so much easier, efficient.
Yeah, just one page for each name. And then I've got them all sorted alphabetically, so that because what happens often is I'll call them, they're not home, and I'll just leave a message. Hey, this is Brian Noel. I'll try and catch up with you later. and oftentimes they'll call me back. And so I like to have a sheet that I can find their name real quick to write the note. So I sort them alphabetically, so that when someone does call me back a couple days or a week later, whatever, then I can put the notes in under that person.
So
Thank
quickly,
you. Yeah.
regarding that note page, you must keep them from year to year to year.
Uh-huh.
So you can quickly look and see how many times in the last 2 or 3 years, whether or not you've spoken to
They're just right here in a 3-ring binder.
How many 3-ring binders, Brian?
Well, I got this one for my SY, and my wife has her half of the SY in her 3-ring binder. And then I have my follow-up 3-ring binder for expireds, and it's sorted by zip code. And then I do have another SOI binder of just one specific, the property that I used to manage, that condominium. And so I keep them separate.
Good for you. Good job, good job. All right, everybody, let's unmute yourselves, please. Unmute yourselves. All right, let's give a big hand. Brian, great job.
Thank
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
That was,
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Brian, have a great holiday. Thank you. Ruth Ann, thank you for letting him do this. And I'm sure you got some flowers coming tonight on the way home. Don't worry about it.
At the bar there, Neil. Thank you.
And I really appreciate this. Brian, what we're going to do now is we ask the group to, talk about what they learned for a few minutes. You're welcome to hang out. If you need to go on, we totally understand it. But Brian, I'm telling you, man, you affect lives. We appreciate it. In life, you're either a warning or you're an example. And my friend, you are an example.
Thank you, Neil. Thank
you. Thank you. Good
Been a
job. All
pleasure
right.
And a true honor. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So what did we learn today? What did we learn today? Who wants to go first?
This is Lolly.
Sorry?
Hello, this is Lolly. I just want to
Lolly,
say
go
that
ahead.
I learned that you gotta do it and not be afraid to just, like he said, sometimes you make mistakes, but you start all over. And I think that's amazing what he did.
Isn't it amazing how
Yes.
humble, and he just does his job, and you wouldn't even know it. Make $700,000 this year. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much. Yeah.
That was great. Okay, what else did we learn?
I love that he said have the right mindset, then be consistent, be persistent, go, make sure you're in the right mood first, and then really get in there and do the same things over and over. And then also the key is know the neighborhood, so you sound like the professional.
It's brilliant. Just blinding flash of the obvious. Love it. Good job. What else did we learn today?
I learned that what he did, he called them and he door knocked them. So he was really consistent about tracking them down, whether it was over the phone or it was with the door knock. And with meeting face to face, people feel like you're a little more people feel that you're more personable. And when you just go to the door, you can print out the expired. And when he said, "Hey, you must be John," that's the easy opener, because they've been getting your information and they already feel like you kind of know them. And when you use their name, they feel like they know you as well. So I felt like that made it easier.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. What else did we learn today? What else? Go ahead, Tess.
Yes, I like what he said about be more focused and intentional, meaning that when he's talking to the client, I can sense what he said, that he's not really in there for numbers, but basically be more focused. So that goes to where I can tell he's the type of person when you talk to him that he is not pushy, but really, down to earth. People would trust him, not a
Sure.
salesperson.
For sure. I think that That comes across loud and clear.
Yes.
Loud and clear. We can all take something home from that thinking. Good job. All right, what else did we learn today? Go ahead. Is it Winfred? Unmute, can't hear you.
Fred.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you win a race, you win a Fred. Anyway, I like him doing the research, because we make these calls, but if you're not prepared, how can you answer questions or appear as an expert? But he checks the neighborhood stats before he calls them. To me, that's just awesome because
Yeah.
you got your hand right there. I just love it.
You're right. Absolutely. Great thought. Good. All right. What else do we learn?
The antidote to fear is gratitude.
For sure. For sure. Good stuff. All right. What else did we learn today before we move back on to prospecting?
It's Rosa. I like how he said, because I'm also a door knocker. I like door knocking. So he goes to the doors for expires and how he leaves his card and then he sends a letter so they can know that he was there. And so to me, that was really good. So my question is, can we leave business cards right now at the doors with this COVID?
Cindy, are you there?
I guess she said no, but I don't know if that changed. I think before I heard no, but.
That may have actually changed recently, where you can. There's no laws right now saying that you can't.
Okay.
Just wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Oh my God.
I got door knocked the other day. I had an agent do that the other day to me. They didn't even knock on my door. They just came up to the door and dropped off a flyer.
Oh, okay. Good to
All
know.
right.
Okay.
Okay. Cindy, did you hear that? No, she's on the phone. Okay. Other things we learned today from Brian.
Neil, I'll say this. I don't know if we've had anyone on here that really just made it seem as simple as he does. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't, I hammer this and go that. It was just very straightforward. And, he made it seem the same way that we go through. Like he was talking about, I drive by this house every night before I go home. And I just drive by it and I'm like, I'm not going to go knock on their door. It's nighttime. I mean, how many times have all of us been in that same situation where we do that? And he's just like, I'm going to go do it. I'm just going to go do it. And then he goes and does it. Like he made it so simple to follow. And so I saw Rosa Linda put a good word in there. So relatable to everything that we do. I don't know if we've had anyone that really broke it down that simple.
No, I agree. Ruth Ann made a comment here. Hey, Ruth Ann, why don't you unmute yourself and share with us if you can. I don't know if you're still there, but
yeah, I'm here. Hi, I'm here.
So there's the famous Ruth Ann.
Hi, Ruth. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, it's so great to be here.
So read the comment that you put in the chat box.
I put that he's very consistent on following up as well. It really takes sometimes 8+ contacts in order to get an appointment and a contract signed. And he is so dogged about following up, either with his follow-up door knocking or following up with phone calls to any leads that we get. He is just really remarkable on his follow-up.
I love it. I love it. So Ruth Ann, I'm kind of curious, what you going to do with the extra $350,000 this year?
Well, we just bought another vacation property at the north end of our state, and that took a big chunk of that.
Oh, that's great. Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, my dream property.
Very smart.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good stuff. All right, everybody. Let's unmute yourselves. Give them a big hand one last time. Good work.
Thank you.
Right.
Great. Thank
Thank you.
Okay.